Hello and welcome everyone. This is the video tutorial for the Stevie Wallet Pattern. This is a minimalist wallet. It is a great way to carry just your essentials. It has two card pockets here in the front that can carry up to 4 cards. It also has a cash pocket here, and then on the other side it has an ID slot. It fits really easily into your front pocket or into a small bag. What I have here is what you're going to see if you have bought the kit. We have all your templates and pieces cut out by laser, so everything's very precise. You have template A, template B, template C, template D, template E, and then you have your clear vinyl piece that's going to go over your ID slot. If you are making this tutorial from the pattern and you didn't get a kit, you want to go ahead and cut all your pieces out. You're going to cut one of each template along with the clear vinyl for the ID slot. Make sure when you're tracing your pieces to orientate the templates all on the same face. So if you're going to be cutting or tracing your templates on the back of your fabric, make sure you turn all of your templates over because they do have a correct orientation, and if one of them's turned the wrong way, they're not going to fit together correctly. This pattern calls for a non-fray material such as cork leather like we're using here. You can also use vinyl or a thinner leather or faux leather, or you can even use craft tex paper. There's going to be raw edges left on all the faces, all the sides, so you want to make sure you have something that doesn't fray. All right, if you have the kit, you already have everything ready for you. If you need to cut your pieces, do that and then come back and join me. We're going to start with our pieces B, D, and E, and we're going to be doing some top stitching along the tops of the pockets. This is fairly decorative. It does help stabilize the pockets just a little bit when you're putting things in and out of them. So we're going to start with pieces D and E, and we're going to top stitch just along this upper edge, around the curve and across, just along that upper edge, about 1/8 of an inch from the top. You will want to not backstitch to have a cleaner line, so leave a long tail, and then once we're done stitching, we'll pull the threads over to the back side of the fabric and tie them off. That will leave a nice clean line at the end instead of having that doubling back. Around the corner of the, or around the curve of the pocket, I like to use my hand crank and just turn my pocket around that corner if you are more skilled and are able to get a nice curve by using your pedal. All the more power to you. I get wonky lines when I do it that way, so one more stitch here. When I go around curves, I just hand crank it and I get a much more even and precise line. All right, so remember, don't backstitch. Cut that thread nice and long. Okay, I'm using a contrasting fabric here, or thread here, just a little bit to the fabric so you can see where I'm going. We're going to do the exact same thing on this pocket. I know this is a little slower, hand cranking it, but you do get a nice even line around this curve. At least that's how I have to get the nice even line around the curve. Let's see. One more stitch here. Yeah. Okay. So there's the top of that pocket. Now, on template B, we're going to be sewing just under this card slot. There's going to be more stitching done around the card slot, so make sure you get close to, there's going to be more stitching done around this opening for the ID slot. Make sure you get close to this top here. I like to move my needle, reposition it just a little bit, so that it's closer to probably more of a 1/16 of an inch than an 1/8 of an inch. And then you are going to want to come down fairly close to this circle, just right underneath it, and go all the way across to this circle. And again, don't backstitch. Leave a nice long tail. A little too far. Okay. So there we go. So let's move over now, and I'll show you how I'm going to pull the threads out and tie them off on the other side. Now we're going to tie off our top stitching. What you're going to do is you're going to pull this back thread to get a loop here from your top one, and pull the other side of the thread to the back of the fabric. Actually make a knot. Oh my goodness, there we go. I like to do 3 knots just to be safe, and then I trim it fairly close, and then you can either use like a fray check, or I have a lighter because this is a polyester blend thread, so and I just singe my ends there to set the knot. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. I like to use a little stiletto to help pull my loop to my thread from the other side. And we'll just singe that again. And you can see from this side that now it has a nice clean start and stop without the back space or the back stitch. Okay, you're going to do the same thing with your other 2 pieces. Pull the threads to the back side, tie them off, and once you get that done, we'll move on to the next step. Once you have all your top stitching tied off to the back, go ahead and set piece B to the side and get piece C. So now we're going to be working with our front card pocket pieces. We're going to use piece C and piece D first. You're going to measure down 1/2 inch from the top, which means the straight edges with the squared off corners are going to be on the right hand side. So measure down 1/2 inch from the top of piece C and place piece D with the edges of the tabs here lined up along the edges of piece C, and the top at that 1/2 inch. There we go. Clip those tabs in place. Okay. And we're going to sew along the bottom, about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom, to secure piece D in place. Okay, we're just going to sew along the bottom of piece D so that it attaches to piece C. You can go ahead and backstitch on this because you're not going to see the stitching. Is going to be hidden. So go ahead and trim those threads. So we sewed just along the bottom there. Next, we're going to take piece E, and we're going to lay it right on top. The top of piece E should meet up with the bottom of D. So your tabs are, and then you want to get the bottom edge and corners lined up with C, and then just clip it all in place. Make sure everything stays lined up here. If you got the kit, everything should line up pretty nicely because it was cut with a laser, and it should be nice and precise. If you did some hand cutting, there might be a little trimming you have to do to get things to line up evenly, but not too much. Okay, so now we have everything clipped in place. What we're going to do is we're going to sew down just this right edge across all the layers. We're not going to go around any of the others, only the right edge, just the straight side from corner to corner. And you're going to sew approximately 1/8 of an inch from your edge. Here you do want to leave longer tails again if you don't want to see the back stitching. And we'll do the same thing and pull the threads to the back side of the fabric. Let me double check where my needle is. I have to look around my camera. There we go. We're just going to stitch down this edge nice and straight. If you are having trouble with your material sticking and getting pushed by your presser foot, you can use a Teflon foot. That helps. This cork is fairly smooth, so I don't have too much sticking. So leave a long thread, and we just stitched right along the edge there. Go ahead and pull your threads to the back and tie them off, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, now that we have the front pockets done, we're going to move those. We're just going to set those to the side. Go ahead and keep your clips on them just to keep everything kind of in place. We're going to move on to our ID slot. So you're going to need piece A and piece B. that you've already sewn your top stitching on, and you're going to need your clear piece of vinyl. First thing we're going to do is turn B to the wrong side. We're going to place a clear piece of vinyl just centered. Yeah, you can see that. Just centered over the inner slot that's cut out, rectangle that's cut out. I like to have a rough edge on one of those. I like to line my vinyl up just underneath this top stitched line. You don't want it to go over your ID slot, so I put it just under my top stitching, and then get it nice and centered. I take a little bit of washi tape and just tape everything down here at the edges. That's a little bit easier than clips. It holds it in place really nicely. And if you just happen to sew over the washi tape, it's okay. It'll just come right off from your stitching. We're going to sew around our box about 1/8 of an inch from this inside edge. I like to flip my piece back over to the front and sew from the front. It helps it not stick to the vinyl. I also put just a piece of the tissue from the vinyl underneath to help keep the vinyl from sticking to my machine. Again, if you have a Teflon foot, you can use that. We are not going to do back stitching because this is going to be seen. So go ahead and leave a long tail for a cleaner stitch. And get started. Hold on here. There we go. Remember, when you get to the edge or your corner, keep your needle down before you turn. And here at the top of your box, you should have enough room that you're not going to stitch on top of this top stitch line that you did earlier. But kind of play with it if you need to. You can always get a little closer to the edge than 1/8 of an inch if that is how your stitching needs you to be. And just meet back up where you started your stitching. Leave that long tail. If you use tissue, go ahead and get that pulled off. And if you stitched over your tape any, like I did right there, just pull that off as well. It just comes off pretty cleanly. I say that. I'll get the rest of that off camera. Pull your threads through to the back side and tie them off, and then we'll move on to the next step. Once you get all your tape and tissue off, we're going to place piece B on top of piece A, wrong sides together. Get all your edges lined up. Just like that. And we're going to put clips around the edges to hold everything in place. With this one, where you have raw edges, you want to make sure that your edges stay nice and lined up, because you notice when they don't, and then you have lots of trimming to do later on. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to stitch B to A. You're going to start here at the small circle for your ID, and you're going to go down, over, and back up to line up with the circle. So this is going to be approximately 3/8 of an inch away. Well, let's say half an inch, I'm sorry, half an inch away from the edge of your wallet. Or you can do about 1/4 of an inch away from the rectangle of your wallet. When you get to the bottom, actually stitch a little further down, because when you put your ID in, you only want to be about 3/8 of away from your edge, as opposed to half an inch. That will help the ID fit in just a little bit better. All right, go ahead and get that long tail, so you're not going to be back stitching. Remember, you want to try to be about 3/8 of an inch away from this edge, as opposed to half an inch. And you're going to stop again when you get to this circle, or right before you get to that circle. You don't want to go into it. Okay. Go ahead and pull that off. Trim a long thread. And there you go. We'll move on to our next step after we get these threads pulled out to the back. Or, well, it'll be to this side. Okay, for our final step, we are going to put our two pieces together. So we have our A and B with our card slot. Turn it over so you have your side A on top with the card slot at the top. You're going to take your pocket pieces, which were C, D, and E, and you're going to place them on top here. Line up these rounded corners. And clip in place. You are going to sew around the perimeter of the wallet about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Again, you're going to leave, sorry, I'm off camera. Again, you're going to leave long tails, so around the perimeter. You will see this stitch line just slightly. If you're using a color that blends, or if when you are sewing previously you want to use a matching thread in your bobbin if you don't want to see that as well. It lines up with a pocket fairly easily, so it's not going to be so noticeable. All right, so let's go and we'll sew around the edge of the wallet and we'll be done. I like to start my sewing right here at the top edge of the cash pocket. It hides the start and stop a little better. Also, when you tie your knot, it can be tucked under the card slot or the card pocket just slightly, and so it won't be as noticeable. Okay. Leave that long tail. And since you're pretty close to that rounded corner, your first couple stitches might be hand cranked, because again, when I go around corners, I tend to have to hand crank to get them to look nice. Now when you come to this edge here where you're going to meet up with a pocket again, make sure everything is nice and flat. And your pocket doesn't get bunched. All right, right here I'm going a little slower because it's where my tabs meet up. I want to make sure everything's still in line. And with my camera positioned as it is, it's a little harder for me to see where everything is on my presser foot. All right, we're coming back to the start here. End your last stitch where you started your first. Pull off for a long tail. I pull the tails to this front edge here. And tie them off right here at this top corner. And that hides the knot from the thread really well. And so I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll show you what ends up, how it finishes at the end. Okay, here is our Stevie wallet. The edges are tucked in nice. Got your ID slot, your card slots, your cash slot. It's all finished for you. I love seeing everybody's works. So if you make a Stevie wallet and post online, make sure you tag me. Use at Cork and Thread or hashtag Cork and Thread Patterns, hashtag Stevie Wallet. I hope you guys have a wonderful time making these. Thanks.